40inbox.com here, and a top Arkansas, however you pronounce it, psychiatrist accused of keeping patients against their will in huge Medicaid scam like a prison. So let's check this out. Actually, no, we could actually play this video. Hold on.
Camera footage from 2022 shows Dr. Brian Hyatt making rounds on his psych ward in an Arkansas hospital. But notice something in the clip. He doesn't actually visit patients. Not surprising, according.
Well, that's weird. So, a leading psychiatrist is being investigated for falsely holding potentially hundreds of people in a giant Medicaid scam, with video footage showing him touring hospital hallways without spending any time with patients. This kind of like reminds me of like that saying where like, oh, you were like sitting in the hospital and a doctor comes by to your room, leaves you their business card, and then like, oh, 2 weeks later you get like a invoice for like $500 for a consultation. So Dr. Brian Hyatt, 50, is under investigation by state and federal authorities and facing lawsuits from at least 26 patients who say they were kept against their will, sometimes for weeks, according to NBC News. Some patients even got court orders to be freed by sheriff's deputies, with one caught on an officer's body cam telling him, "Oh my gosh, you saved my life." It was as if I was in a prison, Mama 3 Shannon Williams, 52, told NBC News of being held for 5 days while denying she was suicidal and begging for release. All I saw of Dr. Hyatt was the back of his head in the hallway. I never even saw his face, said Williams, who is herself a nurse. It was like a nightmare. If I cried, then I was again threatened with more time, she said. I was terrified. Hyatt quit as chairman of the Arkansas State Medical Board in late May after Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) agents executed a search warrant at his private practice, the report said. So I guess this is the doctor in question. And like the thing that like really bothers me about this, like I understand people wanting to make money, right? Like I understand people wanting to make a lot of money. And like what a lot of people don't understand is that anytime you run a business and you end up dealing with insurance, the amount of money that you could potentially make is actually huge. Like absolutely huge. To put it into perspective, let's say that like you bill because like you're basically billing the insurance company, right? So let's say that you do like some sort of operation and you charge like 50, you're trying to charge like $50,000 to the insurance company. The insurance company is going to basically argue with you and try to drop that price. You're going to negotiate with them depending on what your practice is, and then basically maybe drop it down to like 30,000, maybe 25,000, whatever it is, if they approve it, and then you get paid it, right? Now, obviously, it's way more complicated than that, but to put into perspective, that's what the insurance payout would be, but the person that's actually paying for the operation, whatever, is actually only paying maybe like $500, maybe 1,000, right? So like the business that is taking this insurance and the payment from the insurance could actually be making a lot of money. So this guy could easily be making like per patient like tens of thousands of dollars from these insurance claims, right? For whatever it is that he's claiming to do with these patients. Like, so he's probably like milking like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a month potentially, depending on how many patients he was seeing, right? And he might not even like ever suspect it, right? Like, say you go to like a doctor's office, a dental office, or whatever, and the place doesn't really look that nice. The reality is that operation is probably a seven-figure operation, and you have no idea. You literally have no idea how much money is being generated by that company because a lot of their money is coming in the form of insurance payouts. So it's pretty insane. But so I don't understand like the purpose of like going the criminal routes when you're already making so much money. Like how much money is not like where's like that level where like you're no longer like you're not content, right? Like if you were making a few seven figures legally, how are you not okay with that? Right? You're like, no, I need to go the illegal route and make even more money, even though I was already making potentially millions of dollars, right? Like just ask yourself that. Let's say that you were making 2 million after tax per year, legally. Would you go and commit crimes to try to make more money? Like you? I personally wouldn't, because I'd be like, oh yeah, 2 million, that would be lovely. Like, let's see. So he was also abruptly terminated from Northwest Medical Center in Springdale, where he'd been the medical director of the behavioral health unit since January 2018, tripling the number of beds to 75. The hospital agreed in April to pay 1.1 million in a settlement with the Arkansas Attorney General's office for failing to provide sufficient documentation justifying the hospitalization of 246 patients. AG Tim Griffin's office has accused Hyatt of running an insurance scam, claiming to treat patients he rarely saw, and then billing Medicaid at the highest severity code on every patient. According to one search warrant affidavit, Medicaid paid out more than $800,000 to Hyatt's facility from January 2019 to June 2022, dwarfing those of other Arkansas psychiatrists. Okay, so again, this is just dealing with like Medicaid, but like there's probably other services that he was billing absurdly as well. He was just probably getting away with this a lot easier with Medicaid. So like again, like we're talking like really good money that he's doing this for, but it's like how is this worth it? Like you're messing with people's lives for money and also you're risking your own life for money. Like I never understand that. It's like just go the legal route and make good money. Like I never understand why people are not capable of just being content, right? Got a nice house, got a nice car, got money in the bank, got money going towards retirement. How are you not okay with that? Right? Like, is that not enough for you? Like, I understand people wanting to like make even more and more money, right? Like, I think everyone would think it'd be pretty cool to make millions of dollars. But at the same time, your lifestyle doesn't really change from like 100,000 to 150 to 200 to 250 to 300. Like it doesn't really change. Like maybe it starts changing after you make a few million, but like what, you're going to buy a nicer box to live in, you're going to buy a nicer box to drive in and dealing with traffic. It's like there's only so much more that you can do with the money. So Dr. Hyatt is a clear outlier, and his claims are so high they skew the averages on certain codes for the entire Medicaid program in Arkansas, the affidavit says, according to NBC. Investigators reviewed 45 days of surveillance footage from the hospital, during which Hyatt interacted with a patient only 17 times, for a total of less than 10 minutes, according to a report by the AG. That is so crazy. Like, this guy was so ballsy, he didn't even spend like the equivalent of 1 day's work seeing patients. Not even an hour. Like, like he didn't even try. Like he didn't even try to pull off this scam and not get caught. So Charlie Robbins, a spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Arkansas, said the execution of its own search warrant was an important step in any lengthy ongoing investigation. At least 26 people are suing him, alleging that they were held against their will in his unit for days and sometimes weeks, with a lawyer in the case saying he expects more to come forward. I think that they were running a scheme to hold people as long as possible, to build their insurance as long as possible before kicking them out the door, and then filling the bed with someone else. attorney Aaron Cash told NBC News. Like, and here's the thing to me, right? I just don't understand how they think that they can get away with something like this, right? Unless they're like specifically targeting people to put into these like rooms that they have a high likelihood of not suing them, meaning that they are basically preying on very poor people, which is probably the case because we are talking about Medicaid. And Medicaid is typically used for people who are not making much money. So it's really sad. Like this is like a really sad thing to like see because it's like you see someone's greed just like take over to such like a heavy extent and like there's like really no reason for it. So Hyatt has not been charged and has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. Of course, when he quit as chairman of the Arkansas State Medical Board, he said he was not resigning because of any wrongdoing on my part, but so that the board may continue its important work without delay or distraction. I will continue to defend myself in the proper form against the false allegations being made against me, he said at the time. And his legal team also told Arkansas Business last month that Dr. Hyatt continues to maintain his innocence and denies the allegations made against him. Despite his career as an outstanding clinician, Dr. Hyatt has become the target of a vicious, orchestrated attack on his character and service, his lawyers said. He looks forward to defending himself in court, they said, predicting charges. Hyatt's legal team maintained that he did not mistreat patients and followed the guidelines of Medicaid billing as he understands them. And Medicaid billing is a complicated, not always consistently administered system that does not make it easy for providers, they said. Like, and to speak of it, like, I've seen places where, like, doctors or some other sort of medical institution blatantly refuses to accept Medicaid. Like, blatantly. They're like, no, we will not accept Medicaid, period. Right? Because it's just like a massive pain to actually deal with. Now, for this guy, it was worth it to him because he was basically just milking the system until that udder just stopped shooting out milk. So Northwest Medical Center also denied any wrongdoing in his $1.1 million settlement with the Arkansas Attorney General's office. We believe hospital personnel complied in all respects with Arkansas law, which heavily relies on the treating physician's assessment of the patient, including in decisions related to involuntary commitment, said the hospital spokesperson, Amy Morrill. The hospital has, however, taken a number of actions to ensure our patients' safety, including hiring new providers responsible for the clinical care of our behavioral health patients, she said. Now, the thing is, this is probably going to affect the hospital's reputation because it's like, hey, you had a doctor, allegedly, basically kidnapping patients and milking their insurance for as much money as possible. So, how can we trust you with treatment? Like, really? Again, this is sad. Like, the biggest thing that, like, bothers me about this is, like, this is why it's very important to, make enough money so that you could hire in-home care. Get to that point, because that'd be pretty nice. You don't got to deal with all this. But again, the thing that bothers me the most about this is like you have someone who's making really good money, basically preying on people that were basically poor. Like, it's depressing. Is it true that only a judge can have you locked up in a mental institution? No, I don't think so. Ways to scam government programs are as many and varied as the programs. The more economic activity is channeled through government programs, the more fraud and waste there will be. I mean, I think people have like heard about that whole like bathroom in San Francisco or something that cost over like $1 million for like a public restroom. Like, let's see. I was admitted once. It was involuntary. The marriage counselor told my husband to take me in or she would call the cops for a pickup. So he took me in. We both asked multiple times when I would see a doctor because every other field requires physician assessment before admission. They all said I would see a doc when I got upstairs. I got upstairs and there was no doctor. They are going to do what they want when they think you are incompetent. Mm, yeah. Feel free to give your thoughts on this. I just wanted to talk about this because again, this is just like depressing. It's sad. And again, make sure to have health insurance, but like make sure to like pay for good health insurance and not rely on something like Medicaid because anytime you end up dealing with the government, it's pretty much never going to end well, like ever. Like, I mean, another example, not necessarily a Medicaid, but the VA, Veterans Affairs. And there is so many horror stories of people who have served the United States getting completely screwed over by the VA, right? And that is a government institution that is completely screwing over people that basically sacrificed their lives and their body, their mental health, etc., and are just completely like kicked to the curb, right? So I wouldn't put any faith into the government at all, especially when it comes to like taking care of you. The government does not give a crap about you. They only care about you paying taxes that you don't know how much you owe, but you got to pay it. So keep that in mind.